Hello, everyone, and welcome to the culmination of Love Alive in the Kitchen. We are here with our folks tonight, and we're just going to share thoughts about how we felt about doing our first cooking venture together. And so I would like to start off with Patrick. Patrick Sturgis is the one that came up with this idea. And Pat, I just want to know what prompted you to want to move forward with this. It was an excellent idea.
Thank you, Net. I think what prompted me is the fact that we have so many great and talented cooks in this bunch. And I'm like, what better way in this age of COVID to share and connect than through food and being in the kitchen.
It's, the kitchen is the place to be, I
That's
tell
where
you.
everybody got it.
I think everybody loves to eat, and I'm one of those. I'm not necessarily a lover of cooking like most people think. I can cook, but I mainly cook out of necessity. My brothers, uh, Edwin and Walter, both loved to cook. Okay, and so I kind of think it's because they didn't really have to. You have a significant other or husband or whatever, you kind of sort of have to cook.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's where I am. But I love to eat. And down through the years, my family, starting with my parents, uh, were just wonderful cooks and creative. And I think that came about from living in the South, especially African American people. They had to come up with ideas of cooking chicken different ways. And then, the master loved black folks fried chicken. So I believe that's how that chicken thing started. But let me hear from somebody else because I can ramble on and on. Um, Maybe let's Rebecca. We talked about you perhaps doing uh, Pastor Hawkins' recipe for sweet potato pie. Now we didn't do that this segment. I wish we had have, um, because in my house, as I shared with the folks earlier, uh, we we didn't go through a dinner without having some kind of dessert.
Right.
We had dessert every night, whether it was just somebody made some homemade cookies, or we had ice cream, or somebody created some kind of other dessert. But we had dessert.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you come to get that recipe from Pastor now? Because he was kind of secretive part of the time early on. So
It
how
was
did you come about getting that recipe?
it was one Thanksgiving and I was cooking and I called him on the phone and he walked me through the recipe on the phone.
Wow,
I know it was really sweet and
you're
I'll
special.
cherish that memory.
You're special.
Thank you.
So the folks who did this cooking segment, how did you feel about doing this segment? What are your thoughts on doing this segment? Did you enjoy it, Mary
I
Cat?
enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I was telling Mark it took a lot of forethought, but because you had to like really plan it out. So how am I going to shoot these vegetables, or how are we going to shoot these red beans, and then so it took a lot of mapping, mental mapping, I'll say.
Yeah, because
I
you
enjoyed it.
all go ahead, baby.
Oh, I'm sorry. I enjoyed it because it was another way of connecting with Ed outside of music. And I knew he could cook really well from the parties and coming to the family's house and all that kind of stuff, and coming to the restaurant. But connecting with him through food, we like to eat.
Yes, indeed. And
I
Mary,
enjoyed it.
you started us out with the starter of fresh green salad with one of his wonderful dressings, salad dressings that he created. What was that like for you?
It was interesting because, as I said on the taping, that was the one of the items that was always on the menu, but it was an interesting process. In a way, it was very I don't know how to explain it, but it was almost like a privilege to be recreating one of his recipes, because both those brothers were very, very ticky about you couldn't just come in and start adding a dash of this and a pinch of that and think we're doing something. So to be able to it's kind of like, I think you would have been proud of that dressing. In a way, it was like Mark said, it was a way of connecting or reconnecting, and because there was so much connecting over food. Traditionally, Black people do that, but especially the family, that was the center of everything. So it was an interesting experience. I never didn't really think about it, but it was really one that made me feel close. It was interesting.
Yes. Patrick, you kind of touched on the challenge. Anybody else have any challenges they want to talk about that they went through this time around?
Yeah. Just, having a photo shoot in your kitchen. You had to move everything around, and it was kind of challenging, experience for my daughter. She was doing the shooting, and she said she didn't think that was her best work and stuff, but we were just trying to have a good time, making food. Because for me, I love making food. I just love being in the kitchen, and so I try to be as natural as possible making it, and talking about it. It was interesting, to say the least, but it came out good. Yeah, it came out good. I really enjoyed it.
It really did, Pearl. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Now, one of the things was to, I don't know what I look like on the camera, but our show was sweating. It was hot in the kitchen,
Okay.
so, just like usual.
You can't really be cute in the kitchen, huh? You can't.
No.
Sweating.
You have to tape it beforehand, and then you get on the camera and show yourself after.
Another challenge was I don't excel at people management. So just getting everybody's schedules together in terms of what things we're going to shoot was a challenge, but I got some help and we got it done. And it was just so much fun. What I like most, Net, was checking out everyone's personal touch with some people chose little ramekins and some people chose big ramekins, and some folks just to see what everybody would do, even down to communication style in the video. It was magnificent to watch, all of that.
I enjoyed the fact that, that one was like from a chef's point of view, and then some was from a home cook's point of view. I enjoyed that.
Yes.
Too, Pearl.
Well, in my family, my father was a professional chef. Mm-hmm. And so Edwin, as I stated, Edwin got his ideas from not only my father, but my mama, because my mama was just simply a down-home good cook. And he combined all that together with his travels and what he learned, and came up with unique ideas of cooking. Unique ways of preparing a simple dish. There was this glaze, and then they would forget. Both he and Walter would forget what they did. Edwin would come up with these wonderful sauce. Like he came up with this sauce to go over chicken that was like out of this world, and he couldn't remember what he did to fix it again. And he did the same thing with a filet mignon. This was beyond Béarnaise. It was just exquisite. And I said, Ed, can you make that again? He said, Ned, I don't think so. Yeah, I can't remember what I did. I'm like, oh no. So it was a challenge for Ed, and Margaret, you can speak to this. It was a challenge for him to write down recipes because we didn't normally do that. Margaret, why don't you share with your venture on getting Edwin to do the cookbook?
Well, actually, it did not start out as a cookbook. It started out as kind of an autobiography, and a few months in, Edwin decided that it was going to be a longer process doing that kind of book. He said, if we did a cookbook, would that be quicker? I said, yes, it would be quicker, you know. And so he said, okay, let's do a cookbook. Now, Edwin didn't have any of the recipes written down. They were all in his head. So
Yes.
it was a challenge
Yes.
getting him to get all that information out of his head. And the whole process, I believe, took about 10 months. Once the cafe opened, I would come there almost every weekend, and we just go over, you know, because he was cooking at the restaurant, and we would just go over the different recipes, and if he had forgotten something, we went over them hundreds of times, just trying to get them right. One interesting fact about the cookbook is there's a picture of chicken on the cookbook. The lower part of the cookbook has a picture of chicken. I took that picture,
Right.
and when he decided which pictures he wanted, but he didn't want chicken in the cookbook. And I said, Edwin, you can't put the picture on the front, look how good this chicken looks, and not put the chicken in the cookbook. He said, Margaret, everybody knows how to cook chicken. I did not win that battle. After I came out, the first thing people wanted to know is, where's the chicken? So I had to go back and make cards for people who bought books when I sold them, if we were out somewhere, to give them that extra card with the chicken recipe on there. He could see, yes, that it was a mistake. He never admitted that it was
Of course
not to put the chicken in there. But I tried and tried and tried, and he did not. Everybody was supposed to know how to cook chicken. And if you look on the comments on Amazon, there are many comments, and several people said the same thing. Where's the chicken? You know, they see this chicken on the front, and it was as good as it looked.
Yes.
And they wanted that chicken recipe, which is not in the book.
That's Edwin, honey.
Yes.
That is Edwin.
That's gonna be my new catchphrase. Where's the chicken?
Where's the chicken? That is too funny. Noelle, we're so glad to have you on, as well as Margaret. I want you to let people know, Noelle Cisneros, I want you to let people know a little bit about your background and how you came to know Edwin and Bishop Hawkins and
All right.
the rest of us.
Can you feed me first?
Can I-
I'm so hungry listening to everybody talk about all these good recipes they made.
I know.
You know, I'll tell you how I ended up meeting Edwin and Walter, but I did have dinner once at Edwin's house, and Edwin did cook for me. I don't remember what it was. I remember that it was Edwin and Walter, and the thing I remember about that evening is, you know, here are these fabulously talented men, and they were talking about the difference in their singing styles. And Edwin said, well, basically what we say is, I'm Barbra Streisand and he's Tina Turner. That's the difference between the way we sing. I thought that was quite cute. So would you like to hear how I ended up at Love Center? I can tell you that story if you want to hear it.
Yes.
All right. So back in, I can't remember the exact year. It was probably 1982, 83 maybe. There was a movie that came out called Gospel. Fantastic movie. It's a concert, well, because you're in it. Fantastic concert movie with the Hawkins family, the Mighty Clouds of Joy, the Clark sisters. I think Shirley Caesar's in it as well. And anyway, it's this terrific movie. And I was working at a radio station at that time, and we got a lot of promotional tickets to various movies. So I got a ticket to go see this movie Gospel. And I was working at KJazz at the time, which was a marvelous radio station. I don't know how many, it's been off the air for years and years, but at that time it was a commercial jazz radio station. It was in a little walk-up on Webster in Alameda. And I mean, it was basically no larger than a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. And it had it was run on a shoestring, and it had this fantastic record collection, they'd been collecting since the 1950s. So terrific jazz. On Sundays, they did a gospel show. And one of the nice things about KJazz and this little tiny group of people who were working there is no matter where you were in the, I don't want to call it an office because it just more of like an apartment really, is you would hear all the guests who were there, because they would be waiting in the lobby. Again, I use that term loosely. They'd be waiting in the middle of this apartment situation, and you could hear them out talking in the hall. So somebody would say, "Oh, could you see Dizzy Gillespie's out in the lobby?" Because they were coming there to do interviews. Or, today it's Kenny Barron or Ahmad Jamal, or McCoy's out there, but he has a really soft voice, right? And that was a really fun thing to be able to hear all the traffic from different people. So one day I was in that center area, and the woman who did the gospel show was there. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm going to space out her name right now. I totally know her name. A long-time Love Center member.
Dorothy Stanton?
Is it
Yes.
Sheila Robinson?
Thank you. No, it wasn't Sheila, because Sheila was on a competing radio station. She was on KSOL. So yes, it was Dorothy Stanton. And so she was doing our gospel show. And so I said, "Oh, have you seen this movie Gospel?" She said, "Yes, isn't that great?" I said, "I love this movie." She said, "Well, the women in the pink dresses and the guys in the blue suits? That's my church." No. "Yes, that is my church. Would you like to come with me?" Yes. And so that particular Sunday, I went to Love Center. Now, I grew up in Minnesota in an Episcopalian church. And I am Scandinavian by heritage. My maiden name is Nordquist. And we, Scandinavian Episcopalian, it would be appropriate to call us God's frozen people. Right? And so the particular day that I ended up at Love Center, Pastor Hawkins, now Bishop Hawkins, was preaching about what he called the most powerful religious experience of his life. And this had occurred to him during that week while he was in prayer. And when, as you all know, Bishop Hawkins was an incredible preacher, brilliant, compelling, right to the point, just such a great preacher. And that's on an average day. But this was the day that he had ended up in the presence of God and was trying to figure out what he had to offer. And he said he didn't have anything to offer when God was so great. So here's Love Center, 8901 MacArthur, little tiny, storefront, maybe 75 feet wide and 75 feet deep, little tiny storefront. And people are falling out. People are falling out of their chairs in the choir, and the whole place is just, going up with praise, and oh my gosh. And here I am, this girl who grew up in the Episcopalian church in Minnesota. But I knew that there was something going on at this church. And I didn't know anybody in this church at all. And I just kept going back week after week after week. And every week, Bishop Hawkins was preaching right to my address. I mean, it was, I know you all have had that experience where if someone is really preaching, you're listening and you're like, wow, how did he know? Well, that was my experience with Love Center all that time. So then I from there, got to know Edwin and Walter. And Edwin, back in 1985 or 6, recruited me and Reginald Stevens and Sheila Robinson, who did the gospel show on KSOL. And the We Are the World concert had just happened. And so he wanted to do a gospel response to that concert. And so we got together. We were trying to, build the infrastructure, if you will, for that concert to happen and hopefully channel some of that money to Africa. Well, for a number of reasons having to do with venue and timing and all that, it didn't happen that year, but it did happen the following year. And so Edwin put together a choir, and he wrote a composition called, I believe it was titled Song for Africa, with a choir. And Lynette, were you in that choir? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. No, I'm not here.
I'm so sorry.
There you are.
In the choir for
Song for Africa, were you in that choir?
Yes.
Okay, so you do
Yes,
remember. And remember the song that he wrote had this lovely, positive feeling to it. And at one point, the choir, everyone turns and they talk, and it just has a lovely kind of lilt with a combination of African sounds and gospel music. And that's the only time I've ever heard it. It's never been recorded. I don't know where it is. I don't know who else was in the choir. And I wish I could hear it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would happen a lot, Noelle.
Oh, I bet.
Placing things like that.
Yeah. So that was lovely. So that was how Edwin and I got to know each other, was through working together to try to launch this idea of his, this Song for Africa.
Awesome. Now, I know you don't like, I know you don't like giving yourself praise, but I would just like for you to let people know what your background is with television.
I actually have a little Edwin story that goes along with that. So I had worked in radio for about 10 years and never, well, I can't say never, I was on the air for a year somewhere else, but mostly I was in support positions, promotion director and that kind of thing. But I wanted to be a television reporter. So in the late 1980s, I left, I went to graduate school. And part of getting your master's degree at this particular journalism school was to do a project. And my project was to do feature pieces on artists. So Edwin was up in Chicago. I was at the University of Missouri, and Edwin was up in Chicago doing one of his music and art seminars right around the time I was compiling my master's thesis. So with a photography student who ended up working for National Geographic. He was terrific. Peter and I drove up there to shoot the music and art seminar. And Edwin just gave us carte blanche. He said, just shoot anything you want, do whatever you want. And then at the end of it, there was, of course, the recording. And I remember being on stage with Peter just, shooting and paying attention to what was going on. And that choir was huge. There must have been at least 200 people in that choir. That's the first time I've ever been on stage with a thundering gospel choir where the risers are shaking, and the power of the music that is spilling off of this choir, quite extraordinary. And they were doing a recording while these songs were being played, right? And so at the end of it, I had arranged with Edwin to do an interview with him after the recording. And so I'm a baby reporter. I mean, I maybe have done a dozen TV stories by that time. And one of the things that baby reporters do is they do really long interviews. And skilled reporters go in and out, right? You know what you want, you go in and out. But I didn't really, I was new at it. And so here's Edwin. He had to have been exhausted at the end of a whole week of teaching everybody about all the business of gospel music and choir arranging and, doing this gigantic conference and then a live recording. And here I come into his hotel room. It must have been like 1:00, 1:30 at night. And he sat there so kind and so, see, I'm going to cry if I say this. So patient with this newbie reporter, right? You know, I was 29, maybe 29, 30 years old. And he acted as though I was just the most interesting, important reporter, right? And he must have been face down tired, but he never let on. And I just remember that as such an extraordinary act of kindness. And I asked Edwin many, many years later, do you remember that? He said, oh, I don't, because I've done so many interviews. And it always stood out to me as a testament to Edwin's kindness, that he took that kind of care after that whole week. So I went from there to graduate from the University of Missouri with a master's degree. And then I went to live in Portland, Maine for about 1.5 years. And then I moved from there to Sacramento, where I picked up a husband, had 2 kids. And then I got a job in San Francisco. It was once the NBC affiliate, KRON. And then I went from KRON to KGO, to ABC7. And then I retired in 2008 and moved to New Zealand for 4 years. Because if I didn't put like a globe between me and the news, I was gonna, still be focused on news. I had to make a clean break. And so we raised our kids in New Zealand. And then they came back here to go to college, and here I am.
You're muted, Net.
I keep forgetting to unmute myself. We're so glad to have you back here with us, Noelle.
Thank you.
You are a wonderful person and just a joy to know you.
Lynette.
Thank you very much. You've always been encouraging. And
you know how I feel about you and your family, right?
Yes, I do. I do. Love you so much.
Yeah.
And we want to not go away from, I'm sorry, Mary?
I just said we love you, Noelle. That's all.
Oh, bless your heart. I do want to say something about Lynette. This is one of my images of Lynette. So Lynette sang at my wedding, right? And Edwin played and Walter married us, right? And the song that I chose for Edwin to sing was I'm Not the Same. And I remember Reginald saying, that's not really a wedding song. I said, it is in my case, because I wouldn't have been there, right? So look at me. So
okay.
Lynette was singing this song, and my 40-year-old Minnesota brother has never been, I don't think, in front of someone who sings like you. And the video, my friend shot the wedding, and here's Michael and I getting married. And over my shoulder in the front row, my 40-year-old brother is crying like a little girl. Oh, it's the most beautiful. Because my son, oh, wow. It's such a precious, precious memory, a moment.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely wonderful. And so, everybody, before we end everything, does anybody else have anything they want to share pertaining to, how do you think Edwin or Walter would feel about what we've done? Do you give any thought to anybody?
They probably want to feed us, right? I hope. Maybe Edwin would make us a pie.
Pat, what are you thinking? You think?
I think they would be quite pleased to know that they were carrying the torch for what they stood for, both musically and in terms of their recreational life. They're cooking, something that they both love to do, and we're just sharing that with the world. I was just thinking that life is about sharing and loving and reaching people and just connecting. And we have shown that we're able to connect to people, both through the music and through the food.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
May I?
Yes, Becky.
There's a saying, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. But spiritually, I think they they got it from your parents, because Edna used to tell me how they used to go to the park and feed the homeless. And that stuck with me throughout my time at Love Center. And I used to watch them in the kitchen. They were like, almost like music as they work with each other. You know, they wouldn't get in the way of each other, and they would work just like music. It was smooth, and it was remarkable to watch them cook in the kitchen on, you know, when they were in the Rippon House.
Yeah.
And so I just think they took a joy out of doing it. So yeah, I think they would be really, really pleased. Patrick and Mark, they took after them in a way with the chat. I don't know if you've guys ever been to the chat. They have that same rhythm. They have that same, you know, they're chip off the old block. Kudos. I really love the session, and thank you so much, Patrick, for the vision.
Oh, thank
you.
Patrick is definitely Edwin.
Mary,
I haven't seen
we're kind of
Patrick and Mark.
giggling. Mary Catherine and I were kind of giggling on the side because we know that there was some fussing going on behind the scenes as well. So thank God for the Holy Spirit that covered that you saw the piece, because they sure did go at it, honey.
It was
That's the truth.
musical. It was musical, but they didn't record at the same time.
Say that again, Mary.
Musical, as Becky said, to watch them cook, but they didn't record at the same time. Why are you doing that? Well, why you put that in there? I wouldn't do it like that. It was just.
Oh my God, that is the truth.
But I was thinking about what you said, what they would think. Because they were such trendsetters. But I think they thought they were always had the trends, you know. So they'd be like, "Why you want to do that? A cooking show? I don't know." And but then they'd be the first ones. I think they'd be the first ones with the biggest smiles on their faces right now, you know. And then and Pastor, yeah, this is my music department. Oh, really? But it's nice to do this and to be smiling, thinking about them. So this is great. This is wonderful.
I think Pearl had a comment too, huh, Pearl? I think.
Yes, I wanted to comment on Lynette when she talked about. I can't remember what she said, but I just wanted to talk about how I did a cooking segment contest.
Yeah.
And yes, and Edwin was one of the judges. Oh, you had talked about something about I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, he really loved the soup that I made, and he kept asking me to make the soup. But if he knew how much stuff I went through to make the soup, there was no way I knew how to make that soup again, ever. It came out wonderful and everything, but I could not make that soup again. I really tried to think about it too. I thought I had written it down, but I think I had lost it in all of the rigmarole. But yeah,
is that what you won the contest on, Pearl?
That's what I won the contest on. Yeah, that little bit of ramekin of soup that they really liked it. Yep, chopped at church. Yes.
Marshall, you're muted.
Marshall had.
I was just saying, chopped at church.
Chopped at church.
That was the name of the show we did.
Oh,
okay. Yes, it was called Chopped at Church. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Lynette.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious to know what everybody's favorite dish is that either Pastor Hawkins or Edwin made over the years.
Oh my goodness. There's so many for me.
I never had corn pudding until Edwin made it.
Me too. That's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Fetty, because that was Fetty's dish, if you ask me. Shout out to Fetty.
Fetty
spawned upon.
Fetty's German chocolate cake. The five.
Fetty chocolate cake and corn pudding. That was my first time.
The corn pudding is actually a recipe of my mom's. So it came down through her. Yeah.
Kudos to mom.
Freddie made it the best.
And that burgundy chicken made with the wine. Oh,
Was that the sauce? Then I'm Marjo. You haven't said much. Oh, nor Rusty.
I have just really enjoyed just listening to the stories and sharing. And for me, I got the opportunity to work closely with Pastor and Edwin on a more administrative level. So I didn't get to eat all their good food, except I did frequent Delight Cafe. And I too like the corn pudding, and I like the pork chops and applesauce. No, but I just really enjoyed the food and the fellowship that I got to have with both of them at different levels, and their reliance upon me that they entrusted me with keeping notes in the meetings, and just the way that they treated me. I got to go to Japan because of Edwin, and I was in Tokyo, Japan because of Edwin's care for me, and like, no, Marjo's coming too. And so it's just like, it felt like I was always tucked under his wing, and he did a lot of things for me behind the scenes that were just between the two of us. And I worked for the CIP, the choir that he had in our last spring concert in 2017. They gave me an award that he made them go get and everything. And it was a nice surprise to me. I wasn't expecting it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was just like, and they were reading it. It was like, this person is this and this person is that. I'm like, who are they talking about? This person is that. And Deshaun was next to me and they said, Marjo Keller. And I looked at him, I said, you knew about this, didn't you? And he started laughing. But it was so nice to be honored by both of them. It was really nice to be honored by both of them. And I would say that if they befriended you, it's because they trusted you, and that meant a lot to them to be able to befriend you, and I just appreciate it, I appreciate being part of this, because I'm no longer at Love Center, but I appreciate being included in this, because it is always going to be my home. It always will be my home.
Well, they saw you as a jewel, honey, that you are. Absolutely. Now, Russell, what do you have to say, honey?
Hi, darling. How are you? Hey, everybody. I want to go back to your question. You asked us what was our favorite dish that Edwin and Pastor have made. And I have an insatiable sweet tooth, so I'm going to go to desserts.
Okay.
Pastor's icebox, his lemon icebox pie, and Edwin's Grand Marnier cheesecake.
Ooh, that sounds good.
And it was, and I had such a sweet tooth that I started making Edwin, and Edwin always gave wonderful gifts. And so I started telling Edwin, if you want to give me a gift, just make me a cheesecake. And so, but Edwin, he wouldn't make me a big one because he said I didn't need a whole cheesecake like that. So every year, my birthday is the week before Thanksgiving. So every year at Thanksgiving, everyone would make me a personal cheesecake about so big. And it was one year it was a macadamia nut cheesecake. One year it was key lime mousse cheesecake. But my favorite was his Grand Marnier cheesecake, and he made for me over and over again. So those are my two favorite dishes. And as far as my experience goes back too far to start talking about it. But like Noel, my first experience with Edwin was we were shopping buddies. That was his other love was fashion. And that's what we did long before he even heard me sing. We were shopping buddies. So, but I love.
He hadn't heard you sing yet.
No.
Well, that must have been a pleasant surprise.
I first met Edwin at going to the seminar, and I'll tell you the story later, Noel, because it will take too much time.
Mark.
One thing I really loved about Ed and Walt, they always made sure for the holidays that Patrick, Derek, and I were taken care of. They wanted to make sure we were not spending the holidays alone. They wanted to make sure we ate. They wanted to make sure we came over and got love and all that, and eating from the family. And it was amazing. That was really family-like and touching that they literally went out their way to make sure that we were taken care of like that. Like, are you guys going back home? Come with us. You know, it was very, very nice, warm, and family-like.
Yeah. Family.
Mm-hmm. And food.
Our family.
Yeah.
And missing the call around when the weather breaks, it gets cool around October, November. Pastor would call you and say, hey, what you doing? Come on out here. I made some chili or some gumbo.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. I'm going to try my hand. I just told my husband tonight, I said, I think I'm going to try my hand at Edwin's clam chowder. I'm going to try to make some clam chowder this fall.
Wow.
See how it be. If it comes out good, then I'll let you all know.
I don't live too far. I'll come be your taster.
Okay.
I do live far, and I'll come. I
Well,
think they
folks,
wanted to include everybody. They had a spirit of inclusion, you know?
Yeah.
So they had that. They just didn't want anybody to be left out. So
Yeah.
it's really nice, sweet.
Yeah, that spirit came down from our parents again. They believed in taking care of the people that were around them if they weren't a part of the family. They just believed that everyone should have something to eat. You know, if you didn't have the means, we were poor, but whatever we had, my mama opened the kitchen. She opened the door. Come on in, have some beans. Whatever we were having at the time, come on in and eat. And I often think about the scripture where Jesus multiplied the 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, feeding 5,000 people. Well, it just seemed like that would happen when my parents would open up the door to people and say, come on and eat. You know, looking at the pot, didn't look like it was much, but it sure was. It turned out to be enough for everybody to get full.
Fantastic.
So just praise God for the principles
Yes.
that came down from my parents. You know, my dad, and I'm going to end this. My dad, for most of my life, I knew him not to call himself a Christian. My mom was. My mom couldn't go to church that often because she was sickly, and I stayed home with her most of the time, and also so she could keep an eye on me. But Daddy was more of a Christian than most Christians that I knew, because he would go out and make friends. I mean, just like that. You know, how you doing, partner? That everybody was partner. How you doing, partner? You know, how you doing? And if they even mentioned anything, if he found out that they were in need of anything, he would do his best to go help. You know, he would go take groceries to people. He would go to people's houses and plant gardens, vegetable gardens for them. You know, he was just like that. You know, I gotta go see about Miss Lemons. I remember hearing about Miss Lemons a lot. She was ill a lot and she couldn't get around. And my dad would go and take her groceries. He planted a garden for several people. I can't remember their names now, but he would do that. And even Pastor, before when he and Tremaine first got married, the first house that they had, Daddy made his way over there, and Walter complained. He said, I didn't ask him to come over and plant a garden for me. But I guess he felt like, well, you're just starting off, honey, you need some help.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's great.
So he went and planted him a garden. But
That's
that
awesome.
love came down from Mamie and Dan.
You know,
I just want to say that's our, I believe that's the heritage of our people.
Yeah.
My mother had said the same thing over and over again about her mother, how there was a bottomless pot, it seemed like. She fed the neighborhood, anybody who needed to eat, who wanted to eat. It seemed she would just put a little bit more, water or whatever in there, spaghetti, and would feed the neighborhood. Yeah, it's just the
I'll throw the
heritage
top
that's
on what you
passed
said.
down.
My mom does the same thing today, and it frustrates me because my mom's in her 70s. But Pastor and my mom, they went to school together. And to see my mom now still opening up her home to people, like there were such people that I remember, the Al McGee's or the David Royals or the Freds, that my mom would just open up her home to and just allow them to take residence and to cook a meal. And I'm like, Mom, it's COVID. You need to put a mask on for one. Now today. Mom, put a mask on and stop talking to people. Stop talking to all these people. She's like, well, I got to let the love of Jesus spread out. Wherever he tells me to do, I'm like, well, Jesus ain't saying it. But it's like, that's our culture. And
Yep.
culture is not a
Yep.
race. It's just our culture.
That's right. That's right.
And our culture ultimately is Christ and to pass love around. And I think it's just so beautiful that we belong to a place of worship called Love Center, that we pass love around, but yet we still try to help people, I'll stop. I wasn't asked no question. I just had to interject and add on to what you were saying, Pearl. But I think it's just beautiful that I will always be a member and a person that will pass love around because of what I was taught, and not because of what I was taught, but how I was shown how to love. Not taught, but I was shown how to love my neighbor and my enemy as well, through the tutelage of Pastor Hawkins and through the experience with him. But I think that it's beautiful that we're continuing this love alive, because love is never dead. And I think that it's just beautiful that love is still alive.
It's a wonderful thing, Chauncey, to be together in unity with people that you love and care for. Because it spreads. It spreads.
Yes.
It definitely spreads.
Yeah, it's infectious.
Well,
smiles all around and free hugs.
Lynette, but we just want people to look out for another cooking segment, a holiday cooking segment, actually.
Yes.
That will include desserts and other fun
goody things.
Stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God.
And
I'll be cooking on that one.
Rusty's gonna cook on that one.
Can you
And
believe
hopefully
it?
we can eat together.
Rusty, you cooking on that
Right,
one.
Pearl.
Quiche.
I'm looking forward to that.
And can we say just thank you to Margaret for working with Edwin to make Oh Happy Day Cooking with Edwin Hawkins a reality.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Margaret.
Yes.
Margaret, thank you.
And isn't it something how things turned out?
Yes.
How she came out during this time?
Yes.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. That is so awesome. And that Noel could join us.
Can't hear
I
you.
was like, this is wonderful.
Yes, it is. It is. So we're going to say goodnight, or whatever time it is for you. We're going to say so long. We will see you again. All right, next time on Love Alive in the Kitchen.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.